Welcome back, Buccaneers fans, to another episode of Hear the Cannons presented by BucsGameday.com, Sports Illustrated's one and only website strictly dedicated to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My name is Caleb Skinner at CHS Null here on X. Along with me, as always, is our lead editor-in-chief, River Wells at River H. Wells on X as well. We want to thank you guys for coming in here and joining us. If you don't mind, if you're out here watching on YouTube, we greatly appreciate it. We would love for you guys to throw us a like, love for you guys to throw us a subscription as well. And then while you're at it, click on that little bell button at the top, turn those notifications on. You'll be notified anytime we are going live, which is usually here on Wednesdays at 7:30, which might be moved depending on some things that might be foreseen in the future, as well as our post-game content that you can go back and watch after the Jets game with our founder, Logan Robinson, along with River Wells, while I was taking off to go home and write a little bit. But with that being said, how are you doing, River? Had a good first game, man, back at home. So first game back, week 3, big stuff. Was it everything you anticipated and more?
Those unis look great, man. They look even better in person. I just want you all to know out there, they look even better in person. So biblical, celestial, angelic, and then in week 5, we'll have them again against the Seattle Seahawks. My favorite throwback uniform in the NFL is the Seahawks blues. It's going to be absolute cinema.
Absolute cinema. You heard it from him first. It's going to be great here in week 5. But first, we got to take it week by week, right? So let's start here. Week 3, good, bad, ugly. Probably a little bit of all, I would think, right?
Yeah, that's how the Bucs' first 3 games have gone. I think there's been some good, some bad, and some ugly in there.
Right. Pretty hard to kind of summate that or like summarize that, if you know, per se, of how the Buccaneers schedule has shaped up to be able to get to 3-0. And again, the 4 quarters aren't being put together, right? That's ultimately what it's coming down to. Great second and third quarters by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think those were the 2 good ones. But other than that, allowing a team like the Jets, who are starting a backup quarterback like Tyrod Taylor, albeit he is a still fairly decent quarterback despite his age, it's kind of rough. You hate to see it, but I think ultimately injuries play a large part of that, and that's kind of what it comes down to. We all know that the Bucs have been shuffling their offensive line pretty much week to week to week at this point.
To week, yeah.
It's something that they're going to have to deal with moving on, at least until wirfs gets back, and we'll talk about him a little bit later.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's allowing those big chunk plays later in the game, kind of settling into what you're doing, playing a little bit more zone. Todd perhaps not being quite as aggressive as he is early in a game, but albeit you walk away with a W, and if you keep winning that way, great. You know, it's great. It shows that you've got some cojones, if you will.
Yeah.
And you can go down there and score and win the game. That's great. But the law of averages will tell you otherwise, River. So go ahead and fill us in on what you were able to see from this last week's win over the Jets.
Yeah, if we're doing good, bad, ugly, I would actually say good's the defense. The defense played very well. They had a turnover. They had 2 turnovers. They limited the Jets for most of the entire game, and they needed to stifle them there to 6 points. And I would say the only time they let up and got tired is when the offense kept stalling out. So that would be my bad, actually. I think that would kind of contribute to where the defense had to kind of keep playing. And then at that point, they're on the field a lot in that heat, and they're going to give up some points, right? For the most part, it was, you know, they limited to 6 points for most of the game there. I thought they did a very good job. Diaby, high pressure guy. We got Antoine Mayfield Jr. at the strip sack, Jamel Dean with a pick 6. Great stuff. The offense went 1 for 5 in the red zone. He caught it. He caught it, guys. There you go. Now, if Jamel Dean can catch those, it's over for the league. And he played very well. He's played very well, actually, this whole season, I think underratedly. So I think I know there's a lot of talk about him, the pay cut, and Benjamin Morrison, but I think I gotta give Jamel Dean his props. He's been playing some really good football. The offense is 1 for 5 in the red zone. Now, does the offensive line have something to do with that? Probably a little bit, right? You had a lot of holding penalties. To be honest, guys, I know the refs were really flag happy. I went back and looked at a lot of those penalties. A lot of them were straightforward, I think. A lot of them were holding penalties. There were a few that were ticky-tacky. I think that pass interference on Sauce Gardner and Mike Evans, I think, was not pass interference. And then, of course, we all know how the end catch with Alan Lazard went, and then the Emeka Egbuka incompletion. Those were some rough points, I think, from the referees. So overall, pretty flag happy crew there. But they were holding, and that's because you had Elijah Klein and Luke Haggard on the line. And really, they're not supposed to be starting at those positions, right? So definitely, I think Josh Gazard needed to be a little bit more trustworthy of that line and push the ball down the field a little bit more in many instances. And I'm curious to see what he does again on Sunday with, hopefully Tristan Wirfs back in there and how that line reshuffles. But I think he could have probably done a little bit better in that area, and I think the Bucs could have executed better in the red zone too, going 1 for 5 and only getting field goals. That's why you end up in that situation that you are in the end of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that situation in the ugly, special teams. If anything ruins this team at any point this year for being as good and resilient as they are, it will be special teams.
Yeah,
And
but
it's not
as
just.
far as
Go ahead.
as far as the block's concerned, if we're being nitpicky about flags, there should have probably been a flag called on that play.
For sure. And that was, of course, Elijah Klein there. And he was not supposed to be on that line, unless injuries. So there's injuries down the field, but they gave up that block kick. Riley Dixon, the punter, was not good. He was not good. He was a very short kicker.
40
at
yards.
That point.
40 yards per or something like that.
It wasn't great. He had 142 net yards total, 40.5 average yards per punt. Not amazing. He needs to get better at that point as well. He's a very slow operator too, so you get a lot of these times where the ball is almost blocked. And against Houston, it did get blocked because you got to get the ball off a little bit quicker. The Bucs got him in free agency from the Denver Broncos, and they're going to need him to play at a higher level, I think, going forward. So, but a little caveat to that: Chase McLaughlin was Money McLaughlin once again. Outside of the block kick, which was not his fault, he hit everything else. And he nailed it too. Drilled the game-winning kick. So that's good to see because it was looking a little bit bad. I think it's still something to monitor over the course of the next few games. But the thing about kickers is once kickers start falling off that cliff, usually they can't really climb back out. But it looks like
thing. Yeah.
It is, but it looks like he was against the Jets. So
I think Chase is kind of one of those guys too, though, that he doesn't really care. Like he's like
he did. I mean, the way he told us in the locker room, he said, "I don't care about the last kick, regardless of what happens." He goes, "If it's a bad kick or it's a great kick and I nail it and it feels good, I don't care about it."
Mm-hmm.
So that mentality is very feast or famine, but it maybe might work for a kicker of his stature. So, I thought he did pretty good. Special teams was not very good. Returning, I think returning's got to be better. Cam Johnson really nailed it at the start, but man, he is ambitious when it comes to catching kicks, I think, and not fair catching. There were 2 different kicks I can recall at the top of my head where I'm like, man, the moment he catches it, just ran over.
Yeah.
Got to think about that too. And that, of course, goes with Dixon trying to. I think the longest punt he had completely outkicked his coverage for a touchback as well. So, gotta fix that. But otherwise, gritty win. And honestly, with how hurt they are, it's really hard to determine where this team's at. I think because it's hard to tell what really needs genuine improvement and what is going to get better with injuries. Special teams could, offense could. The offense has problems for sure. But could it be better if the line gets better, right? Could the special teams tighten up with more people there? And we'll figure that out once everyone's healthy. I think, these next few weeks. But to get these 3 wins, despite all of that, granted, looking like the Bucs have played 3 bad teams, but with injuries, to be able to do that is pretty impressive. I think sacking those wins early. So I think they're gritty, impressive wins. And once they play higher competition, we'll get to have a better feel for if this team is actually for real or if they were just kind of coasting by on some lesser competition. And speaking of higher competition, how about perhaps the highest? The Eagles have won 17 games in a row, a whole season's worth of games in a row at the moment. And now they come to Tampa Bay to try and win another. So
Yeah,
see what happens there.
It's really hard to be mad at this team, and everybody can look at the combined record of the three teams the Buccaneers have beat at 1-8. But ultimately, in my honest opinion, I think all three of those teams are probably better than than their record shows. Ultimately, the Jets, they probably would have been a much more difficult level of competition if Fields is in there at quarterback. You have to deal with his legs. Yeah, Tyrod's got legs too, but he doesn't run nearly as much or with as much athleticism as Fields does. And you look at Houston, their defense, if they would have had an offense, who knows what happens in that game. In Atlanta, we obviously saw what happened to them last week with the benching of Penix, but they're no joke too, and they're going to bring it around. They're going to bring it every single time, especially with it being an NFC South matchup. So you can't really laugh at those games, and everybody wants to point towards either the Bucs or the Colts or 49ers as being one of the worst 3-0 teams in the league. But I think the Buccaneers have shown that resilience, have shown really good stuff. D13 coming in here real quick to say before we move on to the next topic. Would have liked to see them take a shot at Tez again and use White. His running has been good and pass catch is always there. Absolutely. I think that's something the running game as a whole against the Jets was kind of non-existent. Nobody could really get it going other than Baker Mayfield. But it would have been nice to see perhaps Tez in there, maybe give him another shot at returning now that, Cam's off that one really big return that he's had. So we'll continue to monitor, all of that moving forward. But when it comes to the run game, feed the hot hand. There was absolutely no hot hand against the Jets. But let's keep things moving here, River. While you guys are at it, if you guys are sitting here watching on YouTube with us, we truly, truly do appreciate it. Hop in the comment section. Go kick it with D13 over there. Talk with him. Talk with us. Throw up some comments. Throw up some questions. We're here to answer whatever you guys have, as long as it is age appropriate and YouTube appropriate for us to bring on. I got in trouble last week for some comments that I made, but we'll keep it moving forward, guys. Really, truly appreciate you guys hopping in here, joining us on Wednesday nights. But with that being said, moving off this Jets game, a little bit of news that came down. The Buccaneers were working out a former Buccaneer, if you will, in Desmond Watson, the former Florida Gator that weighed over 400 pounds. The whole thing with him was getting his weight down. The Buccaneers announced that they worked him out. Then after the workout, about a day or two later, it was announced that he had signed onto the team's practice squad, meeting their expectations of his weight loss journey, or his getting in, fitness.
I think there's still a while to go. But
I still think there's a while to go. I'm seeing the videos today. I still think there's some room, right?
Yeah. We're at a good point. But the Bucs, they like what he can do. He's a crazy athletic football player, guys. He ran a 5'9" at 460 pounds at the NFL Combine. That is unbelievable. Jameis Winston ran a 5'1", to put that into perspective for some people out there.
Hey, don't hate on America's quarterback, brother.
Is that America's quarterback? Yeah. When I see him start on Sundays, maybe I'll acknowledge that. I think that the Bucs really like his talent. They like what he can do, and they like to develop him on that practice squad. And to just shut this rumor down right now, because I've been hearing it all week once Desmond Watson came in. He will not be active against the Philadelphia Eagles. Todd Bowles said there's no chance. So no, he is not a tush-push facilitator guy that they brought in. Oh, he hit his weight goal this week. No, they like what they can do long-term with him, and they brought him on. He can practice now, and he will practice, hopefully still lose some weight. And they really like the potential that they see in him, the type of football player he can become, because he's very athletic, very talented, and they think that if they kind of develop those raw traits, he can be a really good player.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what everybody was making assumptions. Oh, now the Buccaneers are going to do this because the Philadelphia Eagles and the tush push are coming in here. As Bryce Pat 98 here is saying, one of our regular viewers, appreciate you, Bryce. We already have the anti-tush push of Vita Vea. Obviously, one of the few guys, along with the rest of his teammates, that have been able to stop it going back, a couple years or so. It would be cool. I it would be cool to see Dez out there being able to do that. But it's too early. He's just rejoining the team. Yeah, he's been in the playbook, going back to training camp and things of that nature. But he's still got to get acclimated, right? He's got to be able to play next to some of these guys in practice and see where things are at. You can't just be like, hey, man, go out there. just dive for the football and whoever's in front of you. I mean, you could, I guess, ultimately that is what the play is. You get low as you can and you try and stop them. But not going to happen. Great to see that he's back, though. I'm glad that he's at least made some strides towards what the Buccaneers had set forth for him, which I'm sure whatever team was going to take him on would probably have done the same thing. And that he's working on it. He's going to continue to work on it. The Buccaneers see something in him. And maybe one day we will see him be able to stop, the touch push later down the road, whether that be, the playoffs this season if both teams are able to make it and meet up once again, or in the coming year.
Yeah.
But something to monitor. We'll continue to monitor it for you guys. And Bryce, we're going to be able to get to that actually right now because injuries, man. I feel like every week we are on this show, right? Like every single week. It's like, oh, what are we talking about this week? Oh, injuries. Here we are again. So coming out of the Jets game, we obviously all saw what happened with Mike Evans. Another hamstring injury happens every single season. It's been reported that it's one of the lower grade. It's been reported 3 to 4 weeks. It's been reported 2 to 3 weeks. Either way, you can put that timetable for Mike Evans' return back to the team from anywhere to 2 to 4 weeks. They're probably aiming around week 3, so not necessarily as serious as he has had in the past, but definitely a little bit of concern now that, Godwin still might not be back. That's forcing Emeka Egbuka to become your number 1 wide receiver, Sterling Shepard to be your number 2. So there's that. And then also in the Jets game, third string tight end, kieft, who's kind of like your H-back, your blocking tight end, a very big, valuable asset in your special teams unit as well. Going to be out with a season-ending broken leg, so he will not be back this season. That's a big shot for the Buccaneers run game, a big shot to their special teams. So your thoughts on those two guys. But first off, River, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Bryce's question about Ko. Who is going to be able to replace him in that H-back / fullback role, blocking tight end, special teams type role?
Yeah, this is a good question because I don't know if we've seen Kieft in the H-back fullback role as much this season, but there definitely will be options. The Bucs did just sign a tight end from Ole Miss. They brought in Caden Priestcorn, who is 6'5", 255, and I believe Kieft is about like 265 pounds, so a little bit heftier. But they can always do something like that. They need another tight end in a jumbo set, but they've got guys like Payne Durham as well who can kind of do that sort of thing if there's only one tight end on. In Cade Otton, and then of course Devin Culp's going to now probably be active for the rest of the year, whereas he has not been previously, because he'll need to step up in special teams. There's going to be a lot of different guys that can kind of circle in there on special teams where Kieft was, I think. So they loved him on special teams a lot, and he did have that sort of H-back, fullback sort of thing during jumbo packages, 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets even, and they'll probably try and find some other guys like that to replace him. But they did just bring in another tight end. Maybe to kind of supplement that there. And they brought in some other guys too, some big guys as well. So curious to see what Josh Grizzard ends up doing.
His job just keeps getting harder.
Yeah, and he's doing a pretty good job so far, I think. But I think one of the most impressive things about Liam Cohen, I thought, was his ability to adapt. I mean, when he came to Tampa Bay, this was an 11 personnel zone blocking scheme in the realm of the McVay and Shanahan style offense. That's what he knew, right? I mean, by the end of the year, you're using a lot of 12 personnel sets of 2 tight ends, and you're going to a gap run scheme that ends up working so much better for this offensive line that explodes the run game into something special. And we're still seeing the remnants of that sort of thing already. So how Josh Grizzard can kind of adapt and change things and really make things work will be the mark of whether he's a good coordinator or a great one. So I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, and D13 come back in here. Payne hopefully on the blocking, which Payne is kind of one of those balanced tight ends, which is very
he can do both.
Which similar to Cade. Cade is kind of that nature too. Probably a little bit more of a
receiving tight end.
Receiving tight end there. I mean they're not short on being able to fill this role. can they do it as well as Kieft can? That's the question. Not sure. I mean, to be determined. We'll see. We're not able to report on a whole lot from practice, especially when it comes to line arrangements. And when it comes to line arrangements, you're probably still looking who's there at tight end, who's lining up where. Are they using more 22 personnel? Are they not? So it comes into a whole different group of things that we're not able to give you, and they don't really want us to give you guys until we see it on Sunday. So we'll keep monitoring the situation there with Kieft. But any worries there with Mike Evans? I guess the biggest thing is probably putting a dent in that 1,000 yard, that 12th season with 1,000 yards. But he did it last year, missing 4 games, if I am correct.
He missed 3 games in 4 weeks. There was a bye week in between. Yeah.
He seemed pretty pissed off coming off the field.
He did. And I think that he still can get it because this is a little bit less of an injury from what I understand. It's not as bad. This could be a 1 to 3 week sort of thing. I think 3 to 4 was the larger estimate from guys like Dennis Lang, ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, and then maybe a 2 to 3 in there too. So we'll see what happens with that, but it'll be interesting. I think the biggest thing with Mike Evans being gone, we talked to Baker Mayfield today, and he said something like the way that teams play the Bucs is so dependent on how Mike Evans is approached, right? He gets doubled a lot. And now you've got Emeka Egbuka balling out. And I'll tell you what, guys, the secret's out on Emeka Egbuka, right? He's a dog. He's a certified dog.
When he's at the top of offensive rookie of the year list, you're like, okay.
Exactly. Now he's the best wide receiver on the team right now. And I think he even was when Mike Evans was there, just with what he was doing. So now Emeka Egbuka gets doubled against the Eagles, right? Well, that leaves Chris Godwin coming off of a dislocated ankle. We have no idea what his workload's going to be like, if he's going to be on a pitch count, if he was supposed to be the decoy, but now he can't be because Mike Evans is out.
Right.
And then Sterling Shepard will be the guys that really got to step up in that instance. And, who knows, maybe Emeka Egbuka is just like that and he can make it work with 2 guys on him. It certainly seems like he can. But
all I know is the targets will be there.
The targets will be there. So that really changes the Bucs offense for a little bit. And it's going to be hard to really get the offense going without Mike. Remember, guys, in every game they did not have Mike Evans last year, they lost. So it's tough to really get the momentum going in that respect. And they'll have to make do with it until I think a good return point for Mike Evans, however he's feeling. Shout
out Bryce.
That's a big one. Bryce. That's a big one. That's a big one right there. You might be onto something with that. Woo!
Hey, since Bryce is like up there in our like top viewers and top everybody, I think you should share a little bit with us, right? Come on. What's this hit?
You know what? That's a good point, Caleb. I'll make sure to communicate that. No, it's interesting. And I think week 7 they play the Lions, right? If the Bucs can get everyone back for that game, that they can, get a key. You can have Evans back in the lineup there, right? Logan Hall will be feeling better. Like Christian, that'll be the test, probably, because at that point you'll have a majorly healthy Bucs team against a Lions team that I've just been so impressed with, man. I mean, what they did against the Ravens was world class on Monday Night Football. So maybe that's when Mike Evans comes back, but he's not going to be playing against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's also how it goes.
Yep, and speaking of the Philadelphia Eagles, there's some things to talk about them. The Buccaneers own them. Let's not
I'm glad we're starting off not controversial. Yeah, that's good.
Let's not be shy about it. We've got one of our fellow writers here at BucsGameday who's a diehard Eagles fan, and I've been having conversations with him pretty much all week, and it's definitely heightened today. So shout out our guy Darius. You guys might have seen him on here for an episode or two, but truly appreciate all you do for us, Darius, if you're watching. But been talking smack. There's a lot going on. He said there's no way with the Bucs injuries that they're going to win this game, right? And he said, barring any injuries that go on with the Eagles. And as soon as he said that, about 2 or 3 hours later, of course, here comes all the news regarding what's going on with the Eagles, and they're having injury problems of their own right now. Now, some of these might be, TBD on what happens, a little bit closer to game time decisions, if you will. But Nolan Smith, their elite linebacker there, has been placed on IR. So we do know that Nolan Smith will not be playing this game. It takes a little bit of pressure there on the blitz on the offensive line for Baker Mayfield as well. And then other backers, edges, whatever you want to call them, Zach Baun. I'll let you expand on this a little bit more, but he's dealing, did not practice today with a knee injury, it seems like. And then as well as rookie Geod Campbell, who the Buccaneers, if you remember correctly, had their eyes on back there in the NFL draft, or at least a lot of Buccaneers fans did as well, was also seen with a right sleeve on his right leg and was held out of practice as a DNP as well. River, are you going to lean a lot into this, or what are you thinking when it comes to this? Because I think those would be huge losses. Obviously, the Nolan Smith one's already a huge loss, but losing guys like Baun and then a rookie who has kind of been standing out thus far through 3 games in Geod Campbell, is that big for them?
Yeah, depending on how it ends up going, right? Nolan Smith already is a pretty decent one because he's a rotational edge rusher, but he's a high rotation edge rusher, right? So he's a guy that's been in there, and because of that, it's hard to measure how that it impacts them, but it limits a big part of their rotation. So that's already something for the Bucs. And then, man, it's looking like, Zach Baun was out doing little indie stuff. It's looking like he'll probably play. But even if he does, it seems like he'll be quite limited, right?
Yeah, you said he had a huge
It's
brace.
a big brace, which he had a helmet on running around, but that clearly means that he's trying to recover from something, so that might slow him down. The heat, obviously, a big one. We'll get to that later, but let me tell you the thing about the Eagles. The thing about the Eagles is their core 4, and you guys may have seen this on Twitter, but when the Eagles have Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts on the field at the same time and healthy, they have never lost a football game. They will presumably have that combo this Sunday.
Law of averages. We're speaking about a lot
There
of
you
law
go.
of averages today.
So that's not good. But the other thing about that is that the Eagles are currently 27th in total offense, and they're 18th in total defense. So their offense is having a lot of trouble right now, especially passing the football. Their passing game has been super conservative.
Probably because they don't.
Exactly. Jalen Hurts' ADOT is among the lowest in the entire league. He does not push the ball downfield whatsoever. And it really just ends up being this sort of anemic offense that they've had problems with. They've won all 3 games, but they've won it thanks to some good effort by the defense. And of course, last week against the Rams, had they not gotten that block, they would be 2-1 right now. So I'm not a big fan of ifs. Shout out to all my Justin Herbert fans out there. But I do think that it's important to note that this Eagles offense is normally electric. It's ridiculously talented, but right now it's not firing at the moment. Yeah, horrible is what it's going to end up being, right? It's really short game stuff. And I'm curious to see how Todd Bowles kind of attacks that, because normally this is a very deep shot oriented sort of offense.
Yeah.
That makes use of Devontae Smith, that makes use of A.J. Brown. Any A.J. Brown fantasy owners out there know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's been rough sledding these past 3 weeks. So Cobble's done a really good job of getting Jalen Hurts out of the pocket and making him do things he's not comfortable with. I like Jalen Hurts as a quarterback. I think there are things that he cannot do, and I think the Eagles do a really good job of making sure he doesn't do those things. I think Todd Bowles likes to kind of poke him out of that comfort zone a little bit. Now, if that's the case and they're still throwing like 3 yards downfield on every play, I would love to see kind of what Todd Bowles does with that. So this Eagles team's really tough, man. They're tough out. They're well coached. They got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They're having some problems. The Bucs are having some problems. And maybe what's going to decide it is whether or not which team has problems and is used to the 103-degree weather. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's going to be interesting. That defense is really tough, man. So if Jihad and Zach Baun are a little shaky, that might play into their advantage, because, man, great player. Jihad Campbell as a coverage linebacker has been unbelievable, by the way.
Shocking to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. So I mean, he's been just fantastic. So
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. Very interested. There's a good question up here from Roth. So Roth, if you hang on with us a little bit longer, we'll touch on your question here as we get through this Eagles game. But a lot of stuff in here. Todd, his aggressive blitzes, would like a bunch of dink and dunks, creep down in the box. Bucs can't play scared, play like the Bucs. We can beat any team, never been against the Bucs. Bulls living rent free in Jalen Hurts' head.
he's done a really good job on Jalen Hurts, man. And I mean,
Mm.
that's the truth. He has.
Yeah, and the thing that does worry me is, the Eagles aren't pushing the ball down the field. And what did the Bucs have problems with already this year has been, specifically going back to game one is Bajan Robinson in that space. So if you get Saquon in that space on these short little dig and dunks, or whether it's a run or not, you're going to have to rely a lot on your linebackers, right? Your linebackers, your corners on the outside to be able to make these plays. Jacob Parrish has showed up strong, right? Like Jacob Parrish has showed up strong. An elite player on the outside, knows where the play's going. It seems like every single play. Benjamin Morrison made a couple good plays last week as well. And then as long as Dean can catch footballs, I mean, we're looking pretty solid there. That's good. But I think it'll ultimately come down to the linebackers. Obviously, you're going to miss Kalijah Kancey up the middle.
Elijah Roberts has been playing good.
And he's been playing extremely well. Yes. So,
he has been. I think the key to this one, defensively, Jalen Hurts is a very effective running quarterback. He likes to do it. In fact, when you talk about that ADOT, he's got a very low ADOT, so average depth of target. How far he's throwing the football down the field. Very low. He also does like to, if he doesn't see what he likes, run. And to take a page from what the Lions did against Lamar Jackson on Monday Night Football, I think is important because they were able to plug Lamar's running lanes really, really well, right? They would contain him in the pocket. He would look to run, and the linebackers would be disciplined enough to make sure that he didn't get those holes and not over commit on the spy, right? Not jump in and then jump back out. Just watch him and be very, very, very diligent. Bucs are going to need to do that. And the thing that's different there is that unlike the Lions, the Bucs are one of the two heaviest blitzing teams in the league. Todd Bowles and Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings both love that sort of thing. And part of Bowles' big scheme is that he likes to send 5 people to blitz, but you don't know which 5 is kind of his whole thing.
Yeah, and then you can uneven the numbers at that point.
You can. So when he sends those 5 people, he's made a great use of Tyke Smith. He's made great use of Jacob Parrish. Antoine Winfield Jr. had a strip sack being one of those 5 people. You have to still make sure you can contain the edge and plug up those running lanes that Jalen Hurts likes to use. I think one of the few things the Bucs didn't do well against the Jets, and I thought the Bucs team has it good, the contain on Tyrod Taylor on the edge rushing, not good.
Reddick, getting pulled in.
Exactly. And I will say this, if you let Jalen Hurts have that amount of freedom and he's not in his mid-30s, he will tear you up. And so that's going to be huge. You got to make sure you can get him to roll out of the pocket because he doesn't like rolling out to the right there. You guys, if you watch Eagles games, you'll see Jalen Hurts roll out and he'll throw the ball away if he doesn't see what he likes. Todd Bowles is really good at making him do that. And to be able to make him do that, you have to be really disciplined exactly when you attack him and when you sit back and look at his passing game. And that might not be as much of an effector because now they're not throwing down the field at all. So that's kind of an unpredictable part of it. But I think containing Jalen Hurts in the pocket and making him beat you with his arm. I know Jalen Hurts gets a lot of hate from that sort of and you know what, Richard, he doesn't a lot. So that's something to note too. You're gonna have to be able to bring that discipline. Guys like Levante David, guys like Sebastian Dennis have to be disciplined. We know Levante David will, but his legs and his speed not there anymore at his age. So Sebastian Dennis does have the legs and speed. He just needs to really lock in and watch Hurts and be really disciplined on that front. And that's going to be a key for the Bucs to win this game.
Richard's comment reminds me about, I was listening to a post-game interview from Lamar Jackson, right? And he's like, all they did was spy me all night. And he's like, I couldn't do anything. He's like, when they're getting home with their spy and your spy is working, it pretty much eliminates that from the entire process of the game, right?
It does, and you gotta play it real disciplined. You gotta be
right.
smart as to when you commit and when you stay back. That's
Hmm.
gonna be the key to beating Jalen Hurts.
And whether
Last time they played, sorry, one more thing.
you're good, you're
Last time
good.
they played, no Devontae Smith, no AJ Brown, so that was a lot easier.
And I think they were
Now
without Lane Johnson as well, if I'm not mistaken.
they
So
might be, and Lane Johnson is dealing with an injury himself, but it looks like he is going to play through that. A little bit easier last time around, not so easy this time around. So making Hurts uncomfortable and straying away from the things that he's really good at, which Sirianni and company are really good at, just making Jalen Hurts do the things he's really good at as a quarterback to facilitate the offense.
you mean push behind an offensive line that just gets low on the ball and starts off sides?
There you go. Maybe that's it.
I'm kidding.
I mean, that's a big part of it, but I think Hurts is an excellent operator of the football when he is allowed to flourish in his own realm. And I think Todd Bowles has been really good at pushing him outside of that, nudging him outside that box. Gonna have to learn that.
I think the biggest thing with that, right, like, is a lot of teams want a quarterback to be a game manager. I think it's the opposite with Hurts. You kind of want Hurts to be a game manager, or no, the opposite way around. You kind of want Hurts to be a game manager because it takes away his big playability from his weapons and things of that nature. So being able to put him in a position to where he can't run, where he can't, get the ball downfield to guys like AJ Brown and a Devontae Smith, like that's what your goal is. Like you got to limit the explosive plays as much as possible if you're Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's probably going to be the key to victory, ultimately. Slow down this offense. Yes, this defense is still good. Yes, they're still coached on that defensive side of the ball by Vic Fangio, but they're not the same defense that they were a year ago. They're missing a guy like a Josh Sweat. They're missing Nolan Smith now on IR. So there's going to be some ability there on the offensive side of the ball for you to take advantage of. But it'll be, being able to stop that offense, especially with all their guys healthy. With that being said, I just mentioned Vic Fangio. Going back to training camp, Vic Fangio had came out and they were already talking. Hey, what are you going to do when you have to go down to Tampa here in September in week 4? What are you going to do? And he's saying all these things. Yeah, obviously it's a factor, but getting down there a day earlier isn't going to do anything. Taking, powder, taking these pills, any of these hydrating things aren't going to matter. It's going to be kind of more of a mental thing, not staying on the field for, 8, 10, 12 plays when you're on the defensive side of the ball where it's going to wear you down. The heat's going to be able to get to you. But here we are right before the game, and the Eagles are coming down a day early and are kind of gearing towards everything you said that you don't really have to do. But it'll come down to game time, obviously. But do you see heat being a factor? It's being talked about a lot amongst Philly fans, not necessarily, Florida, the people who are Buccaneers fans, because we know what it's about down here. We know that's every single game pretty much when you're playing at home. Is it going to be a factor for the Eagles? It seems like it might have been the past few seasons, even though, this year it might not be as hot as previous seasons.
Well, it's certainly already in their mind, isn't it? They're already thinking about it.
That's win number 1, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I agree with Fangio. I don't think being there on a Saturday is going to help. In fact, I've honestly wondered if you're just putting them out there for an extra day of it being really hot and you're just exhausting them more.
Yeah,
Like, can you imagine going to the beach 2 days in a row? Like, that sounds exhausting, right?
Yeah.
So now they're going to be in Tampa on, like, Saturday.
For, like, 1 day for, like, 3 hours. You come home and you're beat the rest of the
Exactly,
day.
and they're going to do that twice. So I'm not a sports scientist. I want to put it out there. But if that's what it takes to get your mental right, that's what it takes. We talked to Baker Mayfield about this today. He mentioned one interesting thing. He said when you play against defensive lines, they rotate a lot. So it's not really a problem.
And he said the Jets did a pretty good job about that.
He did. He said the secondary cannot rotate. And if you give really long, extended drives in that Tampa Heat, they start to get really tired. And Todd Bowles also mentioned that when the Jets went on those runs at the very end of the game with Tyrod Taylor, his DBs got really tired. So that's really what ends up being the killer in this Tampa Bay Heat. And I think the Eagles can play in this heat. They're Super Bowl champions.
And I mean, it probably wasn't all that, less hot in Philly probably about a month ago, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no, the humidity sucks, but
Well,
for
yeah,
sure it's hot,
that's the
and
difference.
the field temperature, guys, is different than the regular temperature. It was 120 before kickoff against the Jets. It's going to be like 103 real feel in Tampa, and then of course on the field will be hotter. And as you guys may or may not know, the way that Raymond James Stadium was specifically constructed, the visiting side gets the sun. So it's going to be hot. I think it is an advantage for the Bucs for a little bit, but obviously it still affects the Bucs too. It's like how people talk about in Lambeau, like, oh, it's so hard to go there in the playoffs and play in the cold. The
The turf
Packers
is
don't want to do that
concrete.
either.
The turf,
Yeah, the
yeah.
Packers don't want to do that either, dude. I mean, that sucks,
Yeah.
right?
Nobody wants to get tackled on concrete.
No,
Like
it doesn't
nobody
matter
wants
if
to
you're.
play in 120 degrees.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, and of course, as Richard just brought up, half of their team is from Georgia, so I mean that helps. But
Gotta
no, they're Super
remember.
Bowl champions; they can handle it. But I think, I mean, there is definitely an advantage to playing in it, and it's all mental. I agree. At that point, it's not a hydration thing. It's not. Todd Bowles said, if you're playing in the cold for 3 hours, you got to mentally prepare. If you're playing the heat for 3 hours, you got to mentally prepare yourself. So, I mean, it's definitely a thing, but I would not say that that's the reason why the Bucs have been able to best the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
It should also be noted that unusually, and this is kind of hilarious, the Eagles have played here 5 times in a row. So the Bucs have not been back in Philly since like 2021. So like they just keep coming here for various reasons, and they
Hey,
keep running into that hit. Yeah.
I'll
So
take it. I'll take it. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna come down to the heat either. I think it's more so. I forget what somebody said earlier. It's just gonna be ball. It'll be forgot what it's somebody said it, but I can't find it anymore. But ball living rent free in Jalen's head. I think that is more so to deal with things. Todd Bowles living inside Jalen Hurts, inside Nick Sirianni's head, to where they're like, I don't know what to do. There's one reason Nick Sirianni can't beat one team, and it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, other than one time. So like,
yeah.
Right, that'll be tough. But let's go ahead and close her out here. Do the Bucs actually have a chance? Here, River, do they? With all the injuries, and they could potentially be getting Chris, Godwin, and Tristan Wirfs back. We kind of skipped over that earlier a little bit, just rushing through everything, because there is a possibility that one or both are back. I know that we saw the injury report come out after practice today. Chris Godwin was a full participant.
Oh, that means that he was running in team drills, guys. That's good news. That's good news.
Good news.
I think they will have both Tristan and Chris back. I think they will lose this game anyway, but we'll see. And I'll tell you this, guys, even if they do lose this game anyway, the only one they need to win is in January. So, but this is a really talented Eagles team. They're struggling with some health stuff, but they appear to be healthier. They've got a really spectacular defensive line, and if wirfs is back, and no matter what the line looks like, you'll probably have a weakness on one of the sides. So that there's that. It's going to be a tough one, I think, for Tampa Bay to pull this one out, especially because they're still going through some stuff. They're still getting a feel for the offense. I would predict the Eagles take this one in Tampa Bay. Do I think that matters that much in the grand scheme of things? No. I think they're going to get healthier as the season goes on. They're going to get a better feel for the offense. They're going to understand where they're at, what they need to fix. And when they actually do have guys like Jalen McMillan back. Remember, guys, J-Mac's coming back after the bye week. Luke Gedicke's going to be back in week 7. Mike Evans will be back in a few weeks, right? Knock on proverbial wood. I've got wood right here. You're going to have everyone back and no more huge injuries. And this Bucs team will start firing. But I don't think that time is right now. I think this is by far the best team they've played. Do they have a chance? Yes. I think they do have a chance.
It is the NFL.
It is the NFL, but also the Eagles' offense hasn't been super impressive.
Right.
They're dealing with some injuries on defense. They're playing in the heat, like you mentioned. And I think genuinely, Todd Bowles has done a good job of containing Jalen Hurts. I mean, there's definitely a chance. I would just, if I were making my score predictions, which will be out on BucsGameday on Saturday, I think I would take the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, guys, for all you Bucs fans out there, I picked the Jets last week, and they didn't win. The Bucs did. So maybe this is a good thing that I'm thinking Eagles. Maybe that's going to result in a Bucs win. But that's my take on it.
I think they're going to get up for this game. It's pretty hard not to get up for a game like this, right? Like
it's defending Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, and if Todd knows how to get anybody amped up to play a team of this caliber, he knows how to do it. I don't know how he does it. He does. The Buccaneers always seem to play their best ball against the best competition, and I hate to say that because I hate rising to levels and then playing down to levels as well. But it's kind of what this Buccaneers team does, and I'm expecting a big game out of Jacob Parrish. I think he gets his first interception this week. This week. I'm excited to see him play. I also think he has at least one quarterback pressure that could turn into a sack as well. I think Todd's going to put his guys in a lot of advantageous positions. You look what he did with Shiloh early on in the preseason as well. Just kind of hiding guys. Like he kind of hid Shiloh in a spot that he wasn't going to be noticed, which he did with Antoine when he came away with that strip sack as well. So look for Todd to really, 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 really mix it up this game. Try and get after Hurts. He's going to throw things that the Eagles haven't seen on tape this year. So, that epiphany that Todd had this offseason that everybody was talking about. What epiphany did Bowles have this offseason? This could be one of those games that you see something like that.
It's been working so far. And Todd Bowles loves his stunts, like you mentioned. If you guys actually go back to that Lavonte David sack. I've talked about this in the pod. I like to gush over it because it's cool. If you end up going back to that Lavonte David sack on CJ Stroud, he backs up, pretending that he's going to go back into coverage, and then he goes right forward. And Vita Vea actually does a stunt to the other side of the line, and that actually hides when Lavonte David rushes forward. So Todd likes to do a lot of that stuff. He likes to bring those blitzes again.
In his bag.
He's reaching into it. He's pulling out tricks. Like I mentioned before, Todd Bowles' philosophy centers around the 5-man blitz where you do not know which man is coming. So expect Jacob Parrish to be back there. Expect Tyke Smith to be back there. You need a game from the Antoine Winfield Jr. of days of yore for this game. You're going to need him to be firing on all cylinders because he's going to have to take care of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. I imagine you double A.J. Brown is the thing there. But then you leave, of course.
That's an easy choice.
Yes, and then you leave the Slim Reaper up to clean up the rest. But tough matchup. But, man, if Antoine Winfield Jr. can make some plays, fly around, he's been great these past few weeks, looking like his old self, forcing a turnover already, saving the game against the Atlanta Falcons. If he can do that, of course the Bucs have a chance. I think the Eagles will win, but I think to sit here and say there's no way the Bucs beat these Super Bowl champions with how they've been playing and how the Eagles have been playing, no, they absolutely do. So it hopefully is a fun matchup. I think if you're competitive in this game, win or lose, you've done a lot for yourself and showing what you can do.
Right. At that point, there's good to take away from it.
Right. So it's we talked about it being a litmus test today at media, and it is. It is a litmus test. So how can you play against a team that's not the winless Texans? It's not the winless Jets. It's not the Falcons that are currently falling off of a proverbial cliff. Those are the games that you got to win. And if they can do it, they can do it.
It's going to come down to which defense gets a stop. That's ultimately whichever defense can stand up.
And boy, have these both been fantastic units this year. So, except for the Eagles secondary is kind of a little
iffy.
See how that works.
It's like our linebacker room.
To be able to take advantage of that, Josh Gazard is going to have to push the ball down the field, and he didn't at first, and then he did towards the back half of the Jets game.
Your biggest push down the field guy.
Exactly. So now if you do have Tristan Wirfs back there, that'll help a lot with that pressure. And that's the thing, Richard. I mentioned this before. Even if I don't think they're going to win on Sunday, if you win in January, none of it matters, right? That's the game where that's what's going to count. If you want to be in the NFC and you want to win the Super Bowl, all roads lead through Rome. All roads lead through Philadelphia. So in that case, you're going to see them again. They're going to be there. Can't get rid of them.
Yep.
Bucs hoping for all dreams, no nightmares on Sunday. We'll see how it goes.
I almost titled this "Dreams and Nightmares," and I was like, I don't know.
Hey, man.
I was like, it would have been cool, but like, that's what they're
save it for the win.
Yeah, there we go. Hold on, wait. Yeah, I love for that to come on. Like if the Bucs, like if they win in Ray J, Jason's
well,
like,
last year,
like, send it.
Last year in the locker room, we sat down for media before Todd Bowles.
Oh yeah, I remember we could hear it.
It was incredibly loud in the Buccaneers locker room. So they take particular pride in defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see if they can do it.
Absolutely. And then I promised we would get back to this. So you guys hang with us. I hope Rolf is still here because he brought up a question that I didn't even know about until I got a sleeper app notification right before we hopped on the show. And he's asking what is up with Baker's bicep because he is now listed as questionable because he was a limited participant in practice.
Guys, you would have to saw off Baker Mayfield's arm to get him to not play in a football game. He was out there throwing in team, in this. I imagine maybe he just didn't do teams today, but he'll be fine. He got hit a little bit in the arm. You guys may have seen him flexing his hand against the Jets, holding his arm. He got hit a few times. It happens in the NFL. And he also really does not like it when you ask him questions about injuries. He hates it. So we'll never know, and it won't matter because he'll play. So would not be worried about Baker Mayfield, guys.
It's tough, man. I mean, we try and get Todd to answer any questions about injuries. Don't get an answer.
He's sore. That's what Todd will tell you, that they're sore. That could mean that he is going to be limited in practice or that his leg is broken.
Yeah.
So there's no in between.
Yeah.
And then
from Baker, you're just not going to get anything.
Yeah, no. Baker, when we asked him how he was feeling after that Texans game where he got hit 6 quadrillion times, and his response was, "I'm feeling great. It's week 3, baby." So that's about where you're at. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm so glad we got a dog in Baker Mayfield because
he is your favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback. Yeah.
That's such a great quote. Favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback.
So for sure.
But with that being said, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in. If you guys are watching over there on Facebook, head over to YouTube, shoot us a like, hit that subscribe button, and click that little bell at the top that turns your notifications on. You'll be notified anytime we post a video or go live, which is every Wednesday here at 7:30. Open to change on a weekly basis, but most of the time here at 7:30 on Wednesday nights, as well as our post-game content that we put out every Sunday, and then Mondays and Thursdays, as well as Sunday nights if need be, if we do have a game then. That was our breakdown tonight, guys. We went over our injuries that we got going on, injuries with the Eagles as well. Is the heat going to be a factor? The keys to victory, the good, the bad, the ugly from last week's game. Special teams obviously needing to step up. The signing of Desmond Watson, who is not going to be elevated to the 53-man roster in time to be the push stopper. Tons of stuff. If you guys missed us, if you joined us late, go back, rewatch it. We truly appreciate you guys. River, any last parting thoughts?
Fire the cannons.
Fire the